The story unfolds as the protagonist, a weary but determined detective, steps off the creaking train into the mist-laden town of Fairhaven. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke, an unsettling quiet hanging over the streets, as if the town itself is holding its breath. The detective's arrival is no coincidence. They've been called to investigate the disappearance of Lillian Fairfax, a young girl who vanished without a trace from the meadows on the outskirts of town. Fairhaven is a place frozen in time, its cobbled streets lined with aging brick buildings and flickering gas lamps that seem to whisper secrets. The townsfolk eye the detective with a mix of suspicion and relief, some hoping for answers, others wary of the truths that might surface. The first encounter is with Sheriff Calloway, a grizzled man with a permanent scowl, who dismisses the case as just another runaway. His reluctance to entertain the supernatural rumors surrounding Lillian's disappearance only deepens the detective's unease. Next, the detective meets Miriam Fairfax, Lillian's mother, a woman whose grief is palpable. Her trembling hands clutch a faded photograph of her daughter, and her voice wavers as she recounts the last time she saw Lillian, standing near the Watcher's Stone, an ancient monolith that looms over the meadows like a sentinel. Miriam's desperation is tinged with something else, something unspoken, as if she knows more than she's willing to say. The introduction of Dr. Elias Voss, the town's resident historian, adds another layer to the mystery. A man of quiet intensity, he speaks in measured tones about Fairhaven's past, hinting at old legends and forgotten rituals tied to the meadows. His knowledge seems almost too precise, raising the question, is he a helpful scholar, or does he have his own reasons for guiding the investigation? As night falls, the detective walks through Fairhaven's empty streets, the weight of the case pressing down. The meadows stretch beyond the town, bathed in an eerie silver glow under the moonlight. Somewhere out there, Lillian is missing, and the town's silence feels less like absence and more like a warning. The chapter closes with the detective standing at the edge of the meadows, the wind carrying a faint, discordant whisper, almost like a child's voice. The sense of being watched is undeniable. Whatever took Lillian is still out there, and it's waiting. The train's shrill whistle cuts through the evening fog as it grinds to a halt at Fairhaven Station, the last stop before the tracks disappear into the wilderness beyond. The detective, whose name the town doesn't yet know, and perhaps doesn't deserve to, steps onto the platform, the wooden planks groaning underfoot like a warning. The air is thick with the scent of wet pine and something else, something metallic and old, like rain on a rusted fence. A single flickering lantern casts long, trembling shadows, and for a moment the detective hesitates. This place doesn't want them here. Fairhaven reveals itself in slow, unsettling fragments. The town square is a postcard of decayed charm, a crumbling fountain choked with dead leaves, a boarded-up general store with faded advertisements still clinging to its windows, and the faint sound of a piano playing from somewhere unseen, the melody just slightly off-key. The few people out this late avoid eye contact, their collars turned up against more than just the chill. The detective's coat, still damp from the journey, sticks to their skin, heavy as guilt. Morning comes reluctantly to Fairhaven, the sun bleeding pale and watery through the perpetual mist that clings to the town like a sickness. The detective wakes in the rented room above the tavern, the sheets damp with sweat despite the chill. Last night's vision, if that's what it was, still lingers at the edges of their mind. That fleeting glimpse of a girl in white, the voice that wasn't a voice, a dream. It had to be. But the soles of their boots, caked with fresh mud from the meadows, tell a different story. The investigation begins in earnest now, and Fairhaven, ever reluctant, begins to peel back its layers, one reluctant confession at a time. Miriam Fairfax surrenders her daughter's journals with the solemnity of a woman handing over a corpse. The pages smell faintly of lavender and something darker, earthier, like turned soil after a rain. Lillian's handwriting starts neat and measured, but as the entries progress, the words sprawl and fragment, as if the girl was racing against some unseen clock. Dreamed of the stone again. It sings to me. Dr. Voss says it's just the wind through the cracks, but I know better. It has a voice. It says my name. The detective's fingers trace the indents where Lillian's pen dug too deep. On the last page, a single sentence written in frantic, ink-blotted strokes. I don't want to be hollow. The meadow's edge is guarded by a shotgun and a man who's more ghost than flesh. Old Man Hargrove squats in his tumble-down cabin, its walls papered with newspaper clippings of every disappearance Fairhaven has ever known. He doesn't invite the detective in. He doesn't need to. You found the diaries, then, he croaks, as if he already knew. That girl was marked, same as the others. He spits into the dirt, his milky eye fixed on the watcher's stone in the distance. They think it's choosing. It ain't. It's hungry. When the detective presses him, what others? What does it want? Hargrove slams the door, but not before muttering one last thing. Ask the sheriff about his sister. If you dare. Fairhaven schoolhouse is a relic, its chalkboards still bearing half-erased lessons from the day Lillian vanished. The children's drawings flutter on the walls, innocent sons and stick-figure families, except for one. Tucked in the back, Lillian's artwork, a black slab towering over a tiny figure, the sky above it not blue, but a swirling, hungry red. The teacher, a nervous woman who won't meet the detective's eyes, claims Lillian was imaginative, but her hands shake when she says it. She kept asking about the town's history, especially the old cult. I told her it was just stories. A pause. But she didn't believe me. Night falls too quickly in Fairhaven. The detective, poring over maps in the tavern, is interrupted by shouts from the street. Another child is gone. A boy this time, last seen chasing fireflies near the stone. The town's panic is different now. Sharper. The sheriff's facade cracks as he barks orders, his voice too high, too frantic. This ain't like Lillian. Boys don't just... But the detective is already moving, sprinting toward the meadows where the Watcher's stone stands silhouetted against the moon. The wind carries a sound almost like singing, and beneath it, beneath everything, a low, shuddering hum, as if the earth itself is vibrating. Then, a flicker. Not a girl this time, but a shape, tall and impossibly thin, standing between the trees, watching. The detective's flashlight gutters out. When it comes back on, the shape is gone. But etched into the mud at their feet, fresh and glistening, are two words: find us. The air in Fairhaven grows heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and something older, something that smells like opened graves and rusted iron. The detective's footsteps echo through the empty streets as the town's facade of quiet normalcy crumbles like the weathered headstones in its overgrown cemetery. The disappearance of the second child has turned whispers into screams, and now the secrets buried beneath Fairhaven's soil are clawing their way to the surface. The town's archives are a mausoleum of forgotten sins, tucked away in the suffocating basement of the derelict library. Dust hangs in the air like a shroud, swirling in the dim light of the detective's flickering lantern. Dr. Elias Voss watches from the shadows, his fingers tracing the spines of ledgers with the reverence of a priest handling sacred texts. You want to understand Lillian's fate? He murmurs, sliding a crumbling journal across the table. Then you must understand what Fairhaven truly worships. The pages tell of the Watcher's Covenant, a 19th century cult that believed the stone monolith in the Meadows was a conduit to something ancient and ravenous. Their rituals were penned in meticulous, feverish script, offerings of livestock, then trinkets, then children, all left at the stone under the full moon. The last entry is a single, trembling line. It is not satisfied. It will never be satisfied. The detective's hands are steady, but their pulse isn't, because tucked between the pages is a photograph, a group portrait of solemn-faced men in antiquated suits, and there, standing among them, is a face they recognize, Sheriff Calloway's grandfather. Miriam Fairfax is waiting on her porch when the detective returns, her knuckles white around a half-empty bottle of something strong. The grief in her eyes has hardened into something sharper, guilt. I didn't find Lillian in the Meadows, she admits, her voice breaking. I found her at the stone, just lying there. No scars, no wounds, like she'd been placed there. She wasn't breathing, and then she was. The detective's blood runs cold. Miriam's confession twists deeper. She'd heard the stories, the old warnings, but she'd ignored them, because Lillian had been a miracle, a gift, until the sleepwalking started, until the whispers. I thought if I burned her diaries it would stop, she chokes out, but it only made her angrier. The schoolhouse is empty now, the children kept home by terrified parents, but the detective feels the weight of eyes on their back as they step inside. The air is too still, too thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. Lillian's desk is exactly as she left it, and there, tucked beneath the seat, is a folded piece of paper, a drawing the teacher missed. It's the Watcher's stone again, but this time the figure standing before it isn't alone. Shadowy hands reach from the stone's base, grasping, pulling, and in the corner, written in a child's careful print, they're lonely. They want us to play. The detective follows the trail of clues to the abandoned church on the hill, its boarded-up windows like closed eyes. Inside, the pews are rotted, the altar overturned, but beneath it, a trapdoor yawns open, exhaling a breath of damp, fungal air. The stairs descend into blackness. The detective's lantern reveals walls scrawled with the same symbols from the archives, the paint still glistening like it's fresh. And at the center of the chamber, a sight that stops their heart. Small shoes, dozens of them, arranged in neat rows as if waiting for their owners to return. A sound then, a child's giggle echoing from the tunnel ahead. The detective moves toward it, their breath shallow. The tunnel opens into a cavern, and there, bathed in the sickly glow of bioluminescent fungi, stands the Watcher's shrine. A grotesque effigy of the stone dominates the space, its surface studded with teeth-like fragments of bone. At its base, offerings, dolls with their eyes scratched out, locks of hair tied with red string, and a fresh bouquet of wildflowers. Lillian's favorite. Dr. Voss steps from the shadows, his face a mask of grim triumph. You see now, don't you? He whispers. It's not a curse, it's a covenant, and Fairhaven has always kept its promises. The detective's vision swims. The shrine's walls seem to pulse, the air vibrating with that same familiar hum, the sound the stone makes when it's hungry. And then, from the darkness, a small hand brushes against theirs. The storm that has been building over Fairhaven finally breaks, and with it comes the terrible, shattering truth. The detective stands in the ruins of the old church, rain pouring through the collapsed roof like tears from the heavens, their hands trembling around the rusted iron lantern that casts long, wavering shadows across the walls. The shrine beneath the church is no mere relic. It is alive, pulsing with a rhythm like a slow, monstrous heartbeat. Dr. Elias Voss is no longer the composed academic. His eyes are wild, feverish, his fingers twitching at his sides as if itching to claw at the air itself. "You still don't understand," he rasps, his voice fraying at the edges. "The hollow ones aren't taken. They're given." The detective's vision blurs, the walls of the shrine melting like wax, and suddenly they are somewhere else. The meadows, moonlight so bright it bleaches the grass bone white. A procession of townsfolk in tattered 19th century garb, their faces slack, their eyes empty, leading a small, stumbling figure toward the watcher's stone. A child. Not Lillian, another, older, a boy with dark hair and a missing front tooth. The stone is different here. It breathes, its surface rippling like water, and from its depths, something reaches out. Not a hand, not a claw, but a presence, shapeless and hungry. The boy doesn't scream. He doesn't struggle. He steps forward as if in a trance, and then the vision fractures, and the detective is back in the shrine, gasping, their knees hitting the damp earth. Voss looms over them, his lips peeled back in something between a grin and a rictus of pain. "See, no violence, no struggle, just surrender." The detective's mind reels. The children taken from Fairhaven, Lillian, the boy from the vision, the others, weren't dragged screaming into the dark. They went willingly. Because the hollow ones aren't victims, they're offerings. Voss explains in a voice that shakes with something like reverence. The watcher doesn't steal. It asks, and the children, they hear it best. They listen. But the detective has seen Lillian's diaries. They've spoken to Miriam. They know the terror in those pages, the sleepwalking trances, the whispers. "No," Voss corrects, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Not terror, longing." The detective remembers the last line in Lillian's journal. "I don't want to be hollow." Not, "I'm afraid of becoming hollow." "I don't want to." As if she knew it was already happening. The sheriff finds them there, his shotgun loose in his grip, his face ashen. He doesn't raise the weapon. He doesn't need to. "My sister," he says, his voice cracking. "Emma, she was the first, the one who made the rest possible." 30 years ago, the disappearances stopped. For a generation, Fairhaven was safe because the sheriff's sister was given freely. "She walked right up to it," he murmurs, his eyes distant, like she knew it was her turn. The detective understands now. The watcher takes, yes, but only when Fairhaven allows it, only when the town gives it a child who belongs to it. And Lillian? Miriam's words come rushing back. "I found her at the stone." She wasn't breathing. And then she was. Lillian was never Miriam's to keep. The detective's choice. The final revelation. The lantern gutters. The shrine's walls seem to press closer. And then, a voice. Not Voss's. Not the sheriff's. "You remember now, don't you?" Small hands grip the detective's. Lillian stands before them, her skin translucent, her eyes black as the spaces between stars. "You heard it too," she whispers. "When you were little, before you left." The detective's breath stops. Memories surge. A childhood fever dream. A voice in the dark. A name called from the meadows. Their name. Fairhaven's greatest secret isn't the watcher. It's that the detective was supposed to be one of the hollow ones. And they ran. The night is alive with whispers. The detective stands at the edge of the meadow, the watcher's stone looming ahead like a crooked finger beckoning them forward. The air hums with an unnatural energy, vibrating through their bones, through their teeth. A soundless chant that has echoed through Fairhaven for generations. Lillian's hand is cold in theirs, her fingers brittle as winter branches. She doesn't speak, but her presence is a weight, an anchor dragging them toward the stone. Behind them, the town is silent. No search parties, no desperate parents. Only the wind, carrying the scent of damp earth and something older, something that smells like opened graves. The stone awakens. As they step into the clearing, the ground shifts beneath their feet. Not the soft give of mud, but something deliberate, like the earth itself is breathing. The Watcher's stone, once inert, now pulses with a faint, sickly glow, its surface shimmering as though submerged in water. And then, the hollow ones emerge, not as ghosts, not as shadows, but as they were in life, pale, translucent figures of children, their eyes dark voids, their mouths parted in silent song. They circle the stone, their bare feet leaving no imprint in the grass. Among them, the detective recognizes faces from missing posters, from old town records, from the sheriff's grief-stricken confession about his sister. And at the front of the procession stands Lillian, no longer the lost girl, now the welcoming party. The crunch of footsteps. Dr. Voss stumbles into the clearing, his fine clothes torn, his hair wild. He isn't triumphant anymore. He's afraid. "It's not what I thought," he gasps, clutching his chest as if something inside him is trying to claw its way out. The Watcher doesn't just take the children. It becomes them. His hand jerks toward Lillian, who tilts her head, her black eyes reflecting nothing. She's not Lillian. She's the thing that wore her skin, and it's been waiting for you. The memories come in flashes, fragments of a childhood buried deep, a fever, a voice calling from the meadows, their mother's desperate grip, dragging them from Fairhaven in the dead of night. And the awful, hollow truth they were chosen, just like Lillian, just like all the others. But they ran. And the Watcher has been waiting ever since. Lillian, or the thing wearing her, extends a hand. "You don't belong out here," she murmurs, her voice the rustle of dead leaves. "You belong with us." The detective's pulse hammers. The hollow ones press closer, their silent chorus swelling. But then, a gunshot. Sheriff Calloway stands at the tree line, his shotgun smoking, his face streaked with tears. "Emma!" he screams, not to the detective, to the small, translucent girl at the front of the procession, his sister. For a moment, the hollow ones still, and in that moment, the detective sees the truth in their empty eyes. They're not monsters. They're trapped. The breaking of the cycle. The detective steps forward, not toward Lillian, but toward the stone. They press their palm against its surface. It's warm, it's alive, and it remembers them. The ground splits. The hollow ones wail, a sound that shakes the sky. The Watcher's stone cracks, its glow flaring bright as a dying star. And then, silence. The clearing is empty. The stone is just a stone. And in the dirt at the detective's feet, a single small handprint, fresh, as if a child had just pulled themselves free. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.